has notified the president's people that continued use of songs by the Stones will constitute a breach of its licensing agreement. Other artists have also jumped on the bandwagon. Canadian Neil Young says his Rockin' in the Free World was used against his wishes, and the family of the late Tom Petty issued a cease and desist for Team Trump to stop playing I Won't Back Down after it was used during last week's rally in Tulsa. Karen McHugh, Fox News.
New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo saying the daily death toll caused by the coronavirus in his state fell to just 5 on Saturday, the lowest number New York State has recorded in more than 3 months. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, Real Joe Cruz, here we are at the beginning of another week, our favorite day of the week, a Monday. Unfortunately, this is not going to be as good a week as the ones we really cherish because it's only 4 days long.
It's a short week, sir.
Yeah.
And we like tall weeks.
Yeah, we like tall weeks. Tall tales, tall weeks, yeah. So we're going to have one of those long weekends, a 3-day weekend. We're just going to have to tough it out, grin and bear it, be strong until we get back to work on the following Monday. But we'll make the best of the week that we have right now. So we'll do that by starting out with Zemi Ikotny. And as you well know, I look at each of the editorial pages of our daily newspapers looking for editorials dealing with local subjects, never finding one on the Daily News, always finding one on the Guam Daily Post. Evaluate the editorials, which is not very hard when it comes to the Daily News, because the Daily News ordinarily rises to the level of a grade of 0 because they don't participate. And then I go to the Post and I evaluate the English usage, English grammar, theoretical basis of the editorial, factual accuracy, etc. And if it meets tall tale standards, it would be awarded the coveted blue star, A couple days ago, the Post got 2 blue stars on one editorial. But the blue star never goes by default. The Post doesn't get a blue star just because the Daily News doesn't play the game. Okay, so the Daily News today botched Friday Night Massacre. And guess what the subject of the editorial is? How much the Daily News, USA Today, and the Gannett News Service do not like Donald Trump. What a surprise that is, right? Once every 3 months, they write a local editorial. And when it comes to their boilerplate editorials from Gannett News Service, about once every month, there's an editorial that's not about bashing Donald Trump. Post, on the other hand, ordinarily writes good, hard-hitting, edgy, topical editorials on things that people who live here on Guam actually care about. Today is no exception. And this is the editorial in today's Post. Wanted more vigilance over port authorities' actions. I couldn't have said it better myself. The margin between the Guam Port Authority losing money or turning a profit is small. And we customers pay for it whenever the port makes financial missteps. Consider this. According to a recent Guam Office of Public Accountability audit report, the port eked out $1 million or 2% increase in revenue for an entire year in fiscal 2019. The revenue increases were for the most part due to a 1 percentage point tariff rate increase. Cargo volume, wharf fees, and other operating income, the audit report states. The port posted net income of $3.5 million in the 2019 budget year, which is a rebound from a $103 million loss 1 year before. These numbers show the port is hardly flush with cash. Subheading here, spending like a Fortune 500 business. But the way it's been handling rehiring and giving back compensation to some of its fired workers leaves you with the impression that it has a bank account as deep as that of a Fortune 500 company. The port, in the audit of its fiscal 2019 finances, reported a $3 million contingency for back pay and rehiring of some of the port-fired Port 7 managers and employees. The matter stems from a disputed workers' compensation claim over the fall some years ago that led to the firing and rehiring of some employees. One of the Port 7, a controller, had been reinstated to the job from which he was fired and then awarded $400,000 in back pay. He had asked for more than $600,000. In the case of another rehired Port 7 worker, the port authorized more than $360,000 in back pay, covering 8 years. A third rehired Port 7 manager stood to get paid more than $600,000 in back pay, giving her credit for about $80,000 in annual pay for certain years. The latest in the Port 7 saga, their words, not mine, was the port's decision last week to approve a $1.8 million settlement for the remaining 4 of the Port 7 members. Outside of the fired and rehired Port 7 managers, another example of a questioned port action was the case of Agate Mayor Kevin Suswiku, whom the board had fired because he wasn't qualified for the accountant job he was hired to perform. Although he didn't have an accounting degree, The 2-year marketing grad eventually was awarded years of back pay, and he shouldn't have been hired in the first place. The port justified, or at least attempted to justify, that the $1.8 million settlement was worth it, considering that the agency had spent $7 million in prior years for legal fees. There is a slyness, nice word, slyness. Let's add that to the tall tales vocabulary, Real Joe Cruz. And what we need is a slyness detector and a sound effect for when we're using our slyness detector. Can you work on that, Real Joe Cruz?
I'll see what I can do, sir.
Yeah, we need a slyness detector. Yeah. There is a slyness to that claim, and that some of the board's legal expenses over the years were for other matters, legal matters, primarily the Guam YTK issue. The Guam YTK issue threatened to empty out the port's bank accounts in recent years. The port had been served with a series of notices of collection by a failed fisheries business, Guam YTK, which sought to get paid between $14 million and $17 million based on an arbitrations panel's award of judgment against the Port Authority. Guam YTK had sought an order to garnish the port's bank accounts until the Supreme Court decision of Guam decision saved the day. In a surprise victory for the port, the Supreme Court ruled that the arbitration panel's decision, which some thought irreversible, can't stand because the arbitration panel based its decision on a contract that was no longer valid. It took some legal maneuvering to lay the groundwork for the port to prevail and not to have to pay $14 to $17 million to Guam YTK. The matter of the port's finances has bubbled up once again because the port's board has decided to move forward on a $1.8 million settlement on the remaining cases involving the fired Port 7 workers. There are many issues with the port's decision. Oh, you can say that again, Real Joe Cruz. I think I will. There are many issues with the port's decision. Among them, it was made without legal expertise. 2, the port has essentially agreed to throw in the towel on a case even when a Guam Supreme Court decision opined that there were some merits to the Port 7 management decision to fire the Port 7. Luis Baza, a former Civil Service Commission head who was assigned as Deputy General Manager of the Port Authority just months prior to the $1.8 million settlement agreement, is not an attorney. In fact, I could probably say without fear of contradiction that he will never be an attorney. He is not equipped with the legal expertise to give the port advice to fork out $1.8 million to fired workers, even on an installment basis. You know, Luis Baza, let me just take a minute here to expound a little bit on Luis Baza. The port kind of stole my thunder a little bit here because I have an item in the card. You remember I had it in the card on Friday, but I didn't get to it. Items in the card are usually somebody versus somebody, right? Like Troy versus Janela or the GOP versus liability. But it can, since the card could either be like a boxing card or like a court calendar, there's room for a single person's name to appear. And in this case, it was Enri Luis Baza, a.k.a. Winston Wolfe. I don't remember if we talked about this on Friday or not, Real Joe Cruz. You must have seen the movie Pulp Fiction.
I did, sir.
You seem to me like the kind of a guy who would go to movies named Pulp Fiction.
Well, it was written and directed by Tarantino, sir.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, yeah.
Good movie.
A very good movie. Now, do you remember a man in the movie named Winston Wolfe? I'll give you some hints. Remember when the two guys had shot somebody up in the car?
Oh yeah, he was a cleaner. Right?
Yeah. Winston Wolfe, also known as the Wolf.
Yeah.
We got to take this to the Wolf.
I see.
Yeah. So remember Harvey Keitel as Winston Wolfe?
I do.
Of course you do. His appearance in Pulp Fiction as the Fixer, a cleaner who knew how to take care of Jules and Vincent's bonehead mistakes, was the model of efficiency under pressure. A no-nonsense performer who got the job done with style. So, Luis Baza, a.k.a. Winston Wolfe.
Maybe, sir. That's a long shot, though.
Yeah, Luis Baza, also known as the Wolf. Well, let me tell you the story of the Wolf, a.k.a. Luis Baza. You'll recall that we had Connie Joe Shinohara, who, Rory, as he was unpacking his briefcase when he was moving into his office, like he'd been in the office for an hour, said, Connie, I want you to set up a task force to make sure that justice is being done with these adverse actions. So Connie took over that task force, and something didn't work out. I don't know. Probably there is a couple of paragraphs of notes up on the 19th floor that Connie wrote to explain why she left. So in such a short notice, boom, she pulled a Tom Atta, right? All of a sudden she was gone. But even though she left on super short notice, we had the Wolf, also known as Luis Baza, almost like in the closet. So as she's walking out, Rory goes over and says, we have a new deputy director. Here it is. Let's give Warren Wolf a big hand, right? It was almost like reading a play. Connie Shinohara, exit, stage left. Warren Wolf, also known as Luis Baza, enter, stage right. So they brought him in. Then Rory said that he had DQ'd himself and that Luis Baza was going to take over every function of the adverse actions. So then, at his first meeting, Rory wanted to accomplish three things. He wanted us to negotiate with Champ Calvo to settle YTK, which is probably too bad he didn't, because wait a minute, we won that case, didn't we? Yeah, so we could not have gotten as good a deal as winning the case. He wanted to do that. He wanted Connie Joe Shinohara to take a look at the Port 7 cases, and he wanted to get rid of Mike Phillips. All of these things become very clear as time moves on. So they had to wait until July because Phillips' contract didn't end until July. So Rory says, we're going to hire in-house counsel, be a lot cheaper, be a lot better. So they hired Joe McDonald, former chief prosecutor. He wasn't around very long, and he pulled the Tom Atta too. He was gone. So then it was announced that the port had an agreement with the Attorney General where the Attorney General would provide legal services. Well, the Bernadette Maino case is up for hearing tomorrow night, or it was, I guess it still is. And it was announced last week that the Port Authority of Guam is going to be represented at the Civil Service Commission by attorney fill in the blank. Can you fill in the blank, Real Joe Cruz? You cannot.
No,
Even
I
you
can't.
can't fill in the blank.
I can't.
Because the port never hired an attorney. Guess who's going to go to the Civil Service Commission and represent the commission? Let me see, where is that calendar here? Winston Wolfe. Of course you remember his appearance as the fixer, right? The one who went in to fix the bonehead mistakes and was a model of efficiency under pressure. Warren Wolf, a.k.a. Louis Baza. So Louis Baza is going to go to the Civil Service Commission and represent the commission. That was a shocker. That one really grabbed me. But it wasn't as bad as we could get, because on a lot of papers here. Hang on here, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, good call.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Grab and win up to $500 with Budweiser from now until July. Pick up Bud Family and Limerita Family 12 packs, fill out the entry form inside, and place it in the drop box for your chance to win up to $500. Budweiser will be drawing winners weekly, so head to Current Guam on Facebook or Instagram to see if you're a lucky winner. Must be 21 to participate. See currentguam.com for rules, drop box locations, and more info. Budweiser reminds you to please drink responsibly.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, I found what I was looking for. So it was shocking to know that the board would send a layman to the Civil Service Commission on a case where over $500,000 was at stake. I thought that was really bad. But it wasn't as bad as it got, because on their meeting on Thursday, what I have renamed the Board of Spelunkers at the port. What is a spelunker, Real Joe Cruz?
Person who takes part in caving, sir.
Yeah. So the board is pretty good at caving, right? So there was a memo from Warren Wolf, the Wolf, also known as Louis Baza, to the directors, and the subject is Resolution 2020-04. And he has a 7-page memo that he wants them to sign. And it starts out, the memorandum is to provide a factual account of 7 terminated point plays and to provide a strong recommendation to settle the 4 remaining cases. These cases have been ongoing for 8 years. We are all well aware that these personnel cases have consumed a great deal of ratepayer money, the port's time and resources, resulting in millions of dollars in legal fees. We'll get to that in a minute. To the port's former legal counsel, as well as payouts ordered by the Supreme Court, Civil Service Commission, etc. Unfortunately, after 8 years, there remains 4 of these 7 labor issues which have yet to be resolved, and again, the port's contingent liabilities, if not immediately adjudicated, this board will continue to rise. I heard something like that from Rory concerning YTK. That didn't work out so well for Rory, though, did it? So I won't go through this 7-page document, but I will say this. I'll make an observation, and that is that although the wolf is not a lawyer, you know, if you are one and you look at someone's writing, you could usually spot another one. Because as you're reading, you're saying to yourself, this is a lawyer-like presentation. But he comes to a conclusion. This is what he says. The wolf, also known as Luis Spaza, if the port continues to pursue litigation, the board would need to be prepared that there is a long and established history of precedent in these specific cases already decided by the Supreme Court of Guam, the Superior Court, and the Civil Service Commission when recognizes the legislative mandate imposed by Title IV, Section 4406. This statute requires the Commission to void adverse actions where management fails to comply with the 60-day rule. In one of the Commission's decisions, it was stated, the 60-day rule is a compelling mandate which is statutorily determined outcome, not subject to waiver, estoppel, negotiation, or equitable tolling. The 60-day period commences to run on the first day that management, and Mary Torres could be management, that management knew or should have known the underlying facts or events which form the basis for the adverse action. As I stated above, the previous board, under the guidance of the former legal counsel, was aware of the 60-day rule and knew it had been violated. Despite this knowledge, the former legal counsel made more than $7 million off the port, continuing to appeal in each and every case that the employees won and entangling the port for all these years in costly litigation. Now, you got to remember, Luis Spaza was the chairman of the Civil Service Commission when these rulings came down. Mr. Chairman and distinguished board members, now this is the board of spelunkers, I have spent decades of my life defending the merits. Can we have a round of applause here? Mr. Chairman and distinguished board members, I have spent decades of my life defending the merit system. Yeah, wow. I wonder if he's as proud of his humility as I am. And I have read each and every case and have come to the conclusion that there is nothing that has been alleged against these employees that warranted termination. So here's the ruling right here. Here is the ruling. That's why he's the wolf, right? You bring him in to clean up somebody else's mess. And he has determined that there's nothing that warranted termination. And after all, he spent years defending the merit system. So who could have more credibility than that? Based on my review of all the cases and documents, I believe that it would be in the best interest of the port to pursue settlement agreements with the remaining 4 employees. And because of the recent ruling in the cases of Ms. Mano and Ms. Avalosa, we now have a small window of opportunity to realize a savings of more than $1 million to the port through settlement. Now, I wonder if the wolf is speaking hypothetically or if he has pulled a Rory and Champ. A Rory and Champ meaning kind of getting together and chatting about these things before you talk to the board about it. And while the financial saving is important, we must also look at the human cost of this matter. For almost 8 years, these employees have continued to fight for their integrity, and it has been at an enormous cost to them, not only financially, but emotionally as well. Can we have some sad music now, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah. For almost 8 years, these employees have continued to fight for their integrity, and it has been at an enormous cost to them, not only financially, but emotionally as well. Despite the years and the constant battles, these employees have never once lost faith that the port will one day make things right. As such, I implore you, the board, to correct the injustice that has been committed to these employees and bring closure to this matter once and for all. Now, this is the guy that was going to defend the port tomorrow night, right? A tremendous cost. Now, these employees have never once lost faith that the port will make things right. I think that it might sit better with me. Who am I? You know, I'm nobody. I'm a stranger to this. I'm not on the port board. I'm not counsel. I'm not on the Civil Service Commission. I'm just a guy that sits here and jabbers for a couple hours every day. However, just about everything I put in my mouth or on my back comes in through that port. And when the port wastes money, it costs me money. So in that respect, I'm kind of interested. But when Baza says that they never once lost faith that the port will one day make things right, I have a feeling that he is absolutely on point, that he is not shading or clouding or appealing to emotion or anything else. He's probably telling the gospel truth, that they thought that the port would make things right. And Rory really foreshadowed that in his first day with the board, pointing Connie Joe Shinohara, et cetera. And the way he's handled this, he has recused himself, of course. So, you know, with a conclusion like this, what could the board do? The board of spelunkers. Well, of course, they had to adopt the resolution that Luis Baza was recommending to them. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second and just reduce this down to a very simple pairing. I see that there are two sides in this whole Port 7 matter. One side is Joanne Brown, Mike Phillips, Danny Tydinko, the people who were on what used to be the board of directors, et cetera, whose side is Bernadette Maino did not slip and fall. Bernadette Maino was not entitled to a $70,000 trip to Hawaii. Bernadette Maino did wrong. 6 other people were part of the, for want of a better term, conspiracy to help Bernadette Maino do this or cover it up after it was done. And we've got papers and affidavits, et cetera, et cetera. We're not just talking off the top of our head. We have all these things that we can demonstrate. The other side says, those people, let's name the first team. Let's name the first guys. Let's see, can we pick colors here? I don't want to call them red and blue because you know which side I want to win. And I don't want to call them X and Y because that's sexist nowadays. So let's call one side Phillips, and let's call the other side Camacho, Mary Camacho, because obviously Mary, and we'll get into this a little farther, Mary Camacho does not want the port to win, regardless of what else is going on. Mary Camacho does not want the port to win. Former director, executive manager of the port. So the Camacho side is saying, you can't pay any attention to these things, to these people. They're bad people. They don't tell the truth. They're in it just to line their pockets. Everything they say is false. They're just draining the port of money. We should end this right now. And we should be fair to the employees because these other people are not fair people. So I would characterize it this way. On the one hand, we have a legal approach to it. On the other hand, we have a personal approach to it. I can't help but, I can't conceal my bias. I'm a real rule of law kind of guy. I think we should decide contested matter should be decided in accordance with the rule of law, not on the basis of emotion, not who we feel the most sorry for, not who we empathize with the most, etc. So I think I have to side with the Phillips side and not the Camacho side. If I were to stand back and look at it as a public-spirited person, I would say the public probably is a whole lot more comfortable with a rule of law approach than with an emotional Camacho side type approach. Because the rule of law approach is much more easily subjected to proofs. That's why as time went on, way back to merry old England, we invented courts. No more trial by ordeal. There was a time when two people had a dispute over who the cow belonged to. They'd go out and fight. And the winner of the fight got the cow, sometimes at the cost of the life of the other guy. So as we progressed, we decided, no, we're going to have things called courts that will resolve these disputes in the absence of bloodshed or fisticuffs. Rule of law. And when we get into the talk of the separatists and whether Guam should be independent and related concepts, one of the things that I almost always advance is right now, Guam is governed by the rule of law. And I don't want to run the risk of losing that. Our rule of law is imperfect. Sometimes the judges are too lax, sometimes they're too strict, sometimes they let the bad guys out of jail, etc. So it's not a perfect system, but it's a system that over time provides the public with what could be called operative truth. That is, decisions that are arrived at in an apparently fair and just matter. So we went one step farther here with government employees. We have a Civil Service Commission. I've never been a fan of the Civil Service Commission. I think they have done some of the most boneheaded things that any tribunal could ever come up with. But still, it is there, and its job is to try contested cases dealing with terminations. So if we let the system work, and when it's all over, the Port 7 got their jobs back, I'd say, well, I'm not happy with the result, but I'm really happy with the process. Because we use a legal process, we follow the rule of law. We're not doing that here. We have ceded the rule of law to the wolf, to Louis Baza. So that Louis Baza comes in and makes his recommendation, and the Board of Spelunkers caves in and says, oh, yeah, we should do what Louis Baza says, because, those people they've been depending on us, and they've suffered a lot. So we've got to settle with those people. That will never sit right, because certainly with me, because I don't like the result, and I abhor the way the result was reached. Now, going back again to the foreshadowing, 3 days after Bernadette Stern was fired at the port, guess where she went to work, Real Joe Cruz?
For Rory, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Rory was a big man. He put her on his payroll. So when Rory came in, just fresh off the street, how was it that he knew so much about the Port 7 that he had to appoint the Connie Joe's task force.
Working with Bernadette, sir?
What else could it have been? You know, he comes, the new director, fair, impartial, everybody gets a fresh start. I've got things to learn. I'm here to learn. I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to be objective. Except I've already decided what should happen to the Port 7 before I've even unpacked my suitcase. And so on down here to a stunt, like sending the Wolf, Warren Wolf, a.k.a. Louis Baza, to say, well, he'll defend us at the Civil Service Commission. And then an even greater stunt with this, the Wolfman Memorandum to the Board of Spelunkers.
The Wolf of Port Street, sir?
The Wolf of Port Street. All right, Real Joe Cruz, yeah. Do you have a wolf howl there on your sound effects board?
Oh!
Hey, that's pretty good. Which button did you press for that one?
My belly button, sir.
Okay. So we've got the two sides and the two different approaches. And obviously, the Mary Camacho side has won because this goes before the I would suspect that tomorrow night the Warren Wolf, also known as Louis Baza, will go to the Civil Service Commission and say, I'm asking that this matter be dismissed because we're going to settle this case. Or short of that, I'm asking that this matter be taken off the calendar pending final resolution by means of settlement. So where was I here? I left off. Louis Baza, a former Civil Service Commission head who was assigned as deputy general manager just months prior to this $1.8 million settlement agreement, is not an attorney. He is not equipped with the legal expertise to give the port advice to fork out $1.8 million to fired workers. But he did, and they bought it. The settlement agreement was crafted just after a former chief prosecutor had resigned from being the legal counsel at the port. The Port Authority general manager, we've been told, has an arm's length role in the matter of the Port 7 because one of the fired workers once was employed by him. Arm's length. This would be a, Real Joe Cruz, this would be a long sleeve shirt for Rory.
Yes, sir.
A former general manager, deputy general manager, who has been assigned to a task force to look at the issue should be rehired. As you were, whether the Port 7 should be rehired has quit. The current Port Authority chairman, who has a history including bungled procurement process at the airport that cost the airport and other parties millions of dollars, is not the best person to make the settlement judgment call on behalf of ratepayers. So if anything, there's a vacuum of sound decision makers at the port. The Port 7 workers' cases have not been an open and shut. No less than the Guam Supreme Court has raised issues based on merit that cannot be overlooked, simply because the deadline for the port to raise the alleged violations had run out of the initial 60-day clock. One of the remaining merit-based issues was the creation of what the court called a, quote, fraudulent memo as part of the file in the workers' comp issue. A lot of things that happen in the government of Guam aren't by happenstance, not just coincidence. The fact that the port has a general manager whose hands are tied on this matter, according to him, and its board's willingness to sign off on a $1.8 million settlement without legal expertise are just a couple of red flags. Also, raising further questions is the lack of outcry we would usually hear from senators. Where is Tina Rose Monia Barnes? You remember when Ronald McNinch settled with the university? Tina was up in arms. You know, we can't have anonymous settlement agreements. Every settlement agreement must be forwarded to me as the speaker, etc. Now, you know what Tina has said about this since it hit the news, Real Joe Cruz?
Nada?
Well, it's not what she said.
It's what she didn't say, sir.
She didn't say boo. Not a word. Okay, let's take a short break, and we'll come back to, still in Zemi Cartney. I still got a few more things to say here.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers put branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They are open in Agotnia for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them now at 479-2652. Get your Mezcla fix today.
So wrapping up the editorial, we usually hear from senators who would be quick to comment on even inconsequential things. This is not just a question of financial accountability. It's also a matter of doing what's right for the ratepayers and for the integrity of those in public service. But why is there silence? Why are these settlements proceeding without the usual watchdogs and safeguards in place? It can't possibly be chance, or is it? Remember I mentioned that there were two basic squads here, the Phillips squad and the Camacho squad. I got too many papers here. I can't keep track of them all.
I'm just playing some Looking for Papers music, sir.
All right. Yeah, let let me pick up here. I have another one that I'm looking for here about Mary Camacho's appearance before the Civil Service Commission. I'll probably have to find it during the halftime show. But I have an article that ran in the Post on let's see, when was it? I can't pick up the date here. Minutes from a once confidential port meeting revealed. It's a complex and years-old story, recently revived with a twist and with Port Authority Guam funds at stake. More than 6 years ago, Daniel J. Tydenko, the Port Authority of Guam chairman at the time, and other members of the board questioned the port's management decision under General Manager Mary Torres to approve a workers' comp claim filed by former port marketing manager Bernadette Mano. The board at the time questioned Mano's slip and fall claim for about $70,000. The port had set aside a budget for $30,000 for workers' comp self-insurance for the entire agency in a budget year. But Mano's claim alone equips the budget. The port board questioned the approval of the claim without the required board approval. The issues resurfaced after Mano and some of the other six port workers who were fired as fallout from the alleged fraudulent claim, joined by Torres, questioned the integrity of Tydenko and Tydenko's recent nomination to the airport board. Okay, so Tydenko is no longer on the board of Spelunkers. He's moved away. It's several years after Mano's alleged slip and fall. Dan Tydenko was appointed to the airport board. And this comes up. Present at that meeting were Tydenko, Vice Chairman Michael Benito, Board Secretary Shelley Gibson, Board Member Eduardo Ilau, Board Member Christine Boleto, General Manager Mary Torres, Legal Counsel Mike Phillips, and John Bell, a workers' comp attorney from Phillips' office. Here are the excerpts. Tydenko, there's no consistent proper lines of communication. I don't know whose fault it resides. It may be on both ends, whether it's the port or the Department of Labor or Workers' Comp Commission. You're imparting that back to the board that Workers' Comp ordered this. Based on what I've heard thus far, I don't think that the commission ordered it or approved it. Torres, I'm just relying on employees. I brought Francisco Roberto, the safety administrator, into my office and said, explain this to me. Are you absolutely sure? And so, I rely on that. And I also rely on the fact that there were so many channels that it went through. Assurances from 5 people before me. Roberto and other managers had stated in an affidavit that the workers' comp claim was not a work-related injury, and some documents were backdated. Tydenko, we just want to make sure that we're doing it right here. We're not going to perpetuate illegal activity or flawed handling of this stuff. Bell, Mr. Roberto does the initial documentation. He initiates things. He does the 101A. So if somebody gets hurt, Mr. Roberto fills out the 101A, sends them to GMH. I know the per diem for travel was approved by the GM and the deputy GM. And I know that the leave she got as a result of this was approved at times by Mr. Roberto, at times the GM, at times the deputy GM. The big concern, quite frankly, I had was what kind of workers' comp said was kind of what workers' comp said was there the 101B or the GMH report, because all employees have to go to GMH. Every other file had GMH confirming. Yes, we saw the employees. Based on the review that I did with the Mano files, there wasn't any. No workers' comp, no WC workers' comp 101B, and no record that she ever went to GMH. Okay, we'll take a short break and come back and try to wrap this up.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Responding to a controversy, I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. President Trump tweeting late Sunday that neither he nor Vice President Mike Pence were briefed on reports of a rumored Russian offer to pay bounties to Taliban-linked militants for killing U.S. troops in Afghanistan. The president saying those reports were not deemed credible by intelligence officials. Meantime, a video tweeted, then deleted by Mr. Trump, drew criticism for racial overtones it contained.
The tweet thanked supporters for defending the president in the midst of protests. A video attached to the tweet showed a man yelling, "White power." That post was deleted late Sunday morning, but South Carolina GOP Senator Tim Scott said on CBS Face the Nation that it was inappropriate.
We should have the same response with the same type of energy that we have for those folks we know have been disadvantaged for so long. We should stand up and say, that's not right.
Scott did say he watched the entire clip in context and called all of it terrible, including displays from both sides. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The number of deaths from COVID-19 worldwide passing the 500,000 mark.
Another tragic milestone was passed Sunday in the coronavirus pandemic. 500,000 deaths worldwide. The reported tally comes from Johns Hopkins University researchers. About 1 in 4 of those deaths, more than 125,000, have been reported in the U.S. The country with the next highest death toll is Brazil. Meanwhile, more Florida beaches will be closing again to avoid further spread of the coronavirus. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said interactions among young people are driving the surge. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News.
Gas prices inching up a bit. The average U.S. price of regular grade increasing by 6 cents over the past 2 weeks to an average $2.22 a gallon. That's according to industry analyst Trilby Lundberg. America's listening to Fox News.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Horizon do for you. Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
A plea deal set for Monday in the case of California's so-called Golden State Killer.
74-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo Jr., the former policeman suspected of being the Golden State Killer, is expected to plead guilty Monday to a series of linked assaults and murders that terrorized suburban California in the 1970s and 80s. The deal would spare D'Angelo the death penalty for 13 murders and 13 kidnapping-related charges in 6 counties. Survivors expect him to admit to up to 62 rapes for which he could not be criminally charged because too much time has passed. The cases involved an armed and masked rapist who'd break into sleeping couples' suburban homes at night, tying up the man and piling dishes on his back. They said he would threaten to kill both victims if he heard the plates fall while he raped the woman. Salchi and Grasso, Fox News.
Mississippi will retire the last state flag in the U.S. that includes the Confederate battle emblem. Spectators cheering in the state capitol Sunday after legislators passed a bill to begin that process. Republican Governor Tate Reeves is expected to sign the bill. It says any new flag, though, must have the words, "In God We Trust." Voters will be asked to approve the new flag in a November 3rd election. It's been less than a week since former National Security Advisor John Bolton's memoir, The Room Where It Happened, has been released to the public. The book is filled with many allegations by Bolton against President Trump. Bolton chiming in on the dynamic between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Why is the president so defensive about Putin? As I say, I don't read anything into it necessarily. If I had evidence, I would reveal it. I just don't know what to say other than he likes dealing with strong authoritarian figures.
John Bolton on NBC's Meet the Press. To golf, where Dustin Johnson wins the Travelers Championship in Connecticut. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Haggadah and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are back again. We are back again at the Port of Guam with the Port 7 and Mary Torres, Rory Respicio, Warren Wolf, a.k.a. Luis Baza. And we're talking about the Port 7 and what I have evaluated as one of the greatest shenanigans in the history of Guam politics. But I'll continue here with the documents that I rounded up over the weekend. I'm reading the minutes of the Port Executive Board meeting that, you know, we have a statute that says that they have to be recorded and then 6 months later transcribed and published. And the Post has really done a workmanlike job on this. If you were to scan the Daily News coverage of the Port of Guam, you'd find out that it has something to do with shipping, and that would be about the depth of the Daily News coverage. So we left off with there not being a a workers' comp form 101B. And John Bell, counsel, says, based on the review that I did with Mano's files, there wasn't any. And Bell said, and like I said, workers' comp said they did not approve this, and we did not approve anything substantiating the claim, which is unusual. So the port never approved Mano's claim. So then Christine Boleto, one of the board members, said, so the handling of this case was just unusual. Bell, very unique, yes, very, very different. And then back to Bell, and so the $300 per day that Mano got, and her escort got $101 a day, but from what I've seen in every other file that I've seen from workers' comp, the standard is $95 a day, but Mano got $300. Nobody gets more than $95 a day, and Ms. Mano got $303 per day for 15 days. Tydenko, who came up with those recommendations internally to deviate? Torres, this is Mary Torres. You know, from what I saw, this mistake was made. There's a circumstance here that was different from every other one. Miami Olberano in Finance Division is the one that handles these workman's comp issues. She was also not here when Bernadette's was done. What happened that day that this was all unraveling, right? I came back here to figure out where we're at, what was done. Okay, then we go on. Torres, I was given representations by 5 people that this was absolutely proper. Let me repeat that. I was given representations by 5 people before me that this was absolutely proper. After the fact, if your investigation you determine that workers' comp was not proper, that's a separate issue. I did not agree to sign off on something having any knowledge or indication or any, this is a key word here, or any clue that there might have been something improper. If someone signs off on something without having any clue, what do we call that, Real Joe Cruz?
Clueless.
Right. You can't stick me with this. I was clueless. Chairman, okay, so you don't think, so you're suggesting that it's proper that you did not have a complete grasp of all the matters in this particular case? General Manager, Mary Torres, I'm saying that at the time I exercised my duties, I did with proper care and diligence, knowing what I knew at the time. And how did she know she did it with proper care and diligence? She just said so, knowing what she knew at the time. Tydenko says, proper? Let me make sure I'm saying that right. Proper? Did you get it, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah. Phillips. But Mary, you said that the workers' comp ordered you. The problem is that there is no such order produced in the file. Boleto. Once you discovered that these representations made to you falsely, what actions have you taken? How do you correct that problem? Torres. I don't even know the extent of it because at that time we met with you, we turned all the documents to Bell. I believe it was that evening or that morning we were told to cease all communication. Do not talk with workman's comp. So it's been hands off. Boleto, I'm just going off of myself as a general manager. When my people make a mistake, I have to go face my shareholders, and I cannot say my marketing manager lied to me. I have to stand there and have to tell them, yes, I relied on the information. Torres, I don't even know the extent of this yet. So would I be too harsh if I said at this board meeting, Mary Torres was pleading ignorance? I mean, you're briefing me now. I don't even know. This is the first time I know what you've discovered, what the extent of it is, what the gaps are, where it went wrong. I didn't know any of that. Boleto, but did you sit down with Controller Jojo Guevara at least and ask him why did you not let me know that it was this much over budget? Remember, the annual budget is $30,000 a year for workman's comp travel. Mano's expenses alone were $70,000. Torres, I don't know the extent of what we're dealing with now, so no, I haven't. Boleto, you haven't questioned any of the employees? Torres, and I don't know what I'm dealing with, but once I do, now this is really key. I don't know what I'm dealing with, but once I do, absolutely there will be an adverse action. Absolutely. Like I've done with the personnel, like I'm doing with Civil Service Commission. It's what I would do, but I need to know where we're at, and I defer to legal counsel to if it's an investigative thing, then Boleto. Is it something you guys would investigate or that you would relay to her as to what are your findings? Chairman, no, they would probably come up and just say, these are the findings. Boleto, these are the findings. Tydenko, these are all the missteps that have taken place. And within those findings, it's okay to show that, okay, there was improper illegal expenditure, improper advice here given. These are the corrective measures. Boleto, I guess for me, that the most important thing to know is to know, Tydenko, I'm not going to get wrapped around the axle on it. I just don't like the fact that Mary, it's not to frustrate you again. The buck stops with you as a GM. And I know you have this reliance on your management, which you should, but I think it's not the proper way as evidenced in this particular case. This specific one, Torres, and I acknowledge that. If that's what it is, I absolutely acknowledge it, and I will do what I can to correct it, and I will do what I can to hold these people accountable, even if it means adverse action. But I'm just saying I don't even know what you're dealing with until you bring it to me and show me everything and tell me what. Right now I'm going to attempt to get Bernadette to give you documents, which I'll just turn over to you. I'm not doing any forensic work here. But the thing is, I've also thought to address where you accused me of multiple failures, and I think I have adequately addressed that, and you basically dismissed it. Is this what it's really all about? Is that what it's really all about? But the thing is, too, I also thought to address where you accused me of multiple failures, and I think I've adequately addressed that, and you basically dismissed it. Okay, so remember I mentioned that we've got two sides. The one side is the Phillips side, which I'm going to call the law side. The other side is the Camacho side, which I'm going to call the feeling side. Here's a press release from Mary Torres. Mary, and it's written in the third person, Mary Torres files ethics complaint against Port Legal Counsel. Mary Torres today filed a formal complaint with the Guam Bar Association ethics prosecutor alleging that attorney Michael Phillips, Jordan Bell, and the law firm of Phillips and Bordallo violated numerous rules of the Guam Professional Rules of Conduct while handling an investigation into an port employee's work injury and compensation claim. The Phillips firm is the attorney for the Port Authority, and Torres was its former general manager. Torres previously asserted that her termination at the port and the Port Legal Counsel's so-called investigation were, you ready for this now, Real Joe Cruz? Torres previously asserted that her termination and the port's legal counsel's so-called investigation were politically motivated. Why was Mary Torres fired? Politically motivated. Does anybody ever get fired for any reason, any other reason?
No.
No. If the government of Guam ran a paint store and a supervisor caught one of the clerks in the paint store coming out of the paint store with red paint all over his hand, and he goes in and finds out that several buckets of red paint had been stolen and opened, and that employee that came out with the red paint all over his hand were fired, what would he blame it on?
Management, sir.
Politics. Politically motivated. The fact that they caught me red-handed should not sway you from what actually happened. This was all political. All right. She, meaning Mary Torres, stated that legal counsel's report were drafted with the intention of reaching a predetermined result and were filled with inaccuracies. Now, she's the same one who said, I didn't know any of these things were going on. Anyhow, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but, you know, it's another one of these where I sit down and read it, and it cites several rules of professional conduct, and it's another one of those where it's penned by a non-lawyer, but, you know, if you are one, you look at it and say, pretty nice piece of work, pretty workmanlike job. But anyhow, the way to victory for that side is to smear all of the people on the other side. The people on the other side say, hey, look, this is what happened. Didn't happen. These are the statements. These are the affidavits. This is the testimony. This is what happened. This is what didn't happen. And then the people over on the Mary Torres side say, you can't believe these people because they're bad people and they did this and they didn't do that and they don't say their prayers before they go to sleep at night and they eat too much fat and they drink too many large sugary, on and on and on. All kinds of ad hominem attacks. Here we have a press release of Mary Torres making an ethics complaint to the Bar of Guam. Well, everybody has the ability to make ethics complaints against lawyers when they have reason to be dissatisfied with legal services, but to issue a press release that you did it, I don't know. That's ordinarily not the way it's done. And it's ordinarily not the way the system works because the ethics committee, the Bar Ethics Committee, has a lot of confidentiality rules. But anyhow, that's what happened. And we also have another article here. Former port chairman defends action in 2012 firings. Former Port Authority of Guam marketing manager Bernadette Stern didn't slip and fall in a port restroom as she reported, according to former board chairman Dan Tydenko. Tydenko sent documents to the legislature Friday to defend the board's decision years ago to fire Stern Mano and other port employees. The documents provided by Tydenko included signed affidavits by port employees who stated there is no evidence Stern Mano suffered a work injury and that a doctor said her back injury was related to an existing illness. A safety inspector said he found no evidence of a fall or injury. Mano refused to be assessed at Guam Memorial Hospital and said he was instructed a year later by a port supervisor to prepare a backdated report to support the claim. Now, this is an affidavit signed by this guy. Signing false affidavits is not something to be taken lightly. Tydenko, who was nominated to serve on the port's board of directors, had a legislative confirmation hearing March 8th, during which Stern Mano and Senator Torres, the port's former general manager, testified against him. And then there's some background. Torres was removed. I'll skip over. Torres was removed as the port's general manager after she refused to terminate the employees accused of being part of the alleged scheme. Torres, who sat at the front of the room with other lawmakers during Tydinko's confirmation hearing, and she didn't testify. She was ex cathedra for the whole hearing. Ex cathedra, Real Joe Cruz. Cathedra means chair. So when you do something ex cathedra, you're doing it in your official capacity. So she didn't come down and sit and testify as a witness. She sat up with the monocular, the senators. Torres, who sat at the front of the room with the other lawmakers during Tydinko's confirmation hearing, questioned Tydinko's character and integrity. Now, I want to stop there for a second. I saw that hearing, and what happened was that when the hearing, Tydinko testified, senators asked him questions, Stern-Mano testified, etc. But Tydinko had his opportunity with the microphone in front of him to say his piece. But after the hearing was over, Mary Tydinko was still sitting with the monocular ex cathedra, addresses Tydinko's character and integrity. And of course, because she's a senator, she had a microphone in front of her. Everybody paid attention to her. You know what Dan Tydinko said after that? Not a thing, because he couldn't. So you've heard me say this before. One of the things I'm always on the lookout for is when public officials spend too much time, or actually any time, scratching their own itch. Do you know what I mean by that, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In other words,
Doing their own bidding.
Doing their own bidding, yeah, from a senatorial position. So, you go back to Plato's Republic. Does a just man reward his friends and punish his enemies? No. So here's Mary Torres, a senator, speaking ex cathedra, attacking Tydinko's character and integrity. Now, if she wants to go outside and tell the reporter, fine, that's another story. But here she is, a sitting senator, sitting at the end of a hearing. The hearing's over, and she goes after Tydinko's character and integrity. She said it was the biggest political witch hunt in the history of our government. Well, that's Stern-Mano. I can't expect her to say anything else. Torres, during the confirmation hearing, said Tydinko allowed unprofessional and illegal billing practices by the port's legal counsel and disregarded Guam law by holding secret meetings. Torres said it's difficult to believe that several unrelated port this is an interesting argument. Torres said during the confirmation hearing, said Tydinko allowed unprofessional, Torres said it's difficult to believe that several unrelated port employees with solid work records would risk their livelihood because of an incident that no one disputes happened. No one disputes? Everyone disputes it happened. And this is not an argument. Why would they do that? Asking a rhetorical question is not, they've been there for a long time and they've got good careers. Why would they do that? Therefore, obviously, they didn't. Not so. Later on, Dan Tydinko says, I'm compelled to submit this in response to the opposing testimony offered that day. This is Tydinko's written statement. Tydinko told Senator Nelson in an email Friday. He said the board's actions in connection with the incident were proper and responsible. I have culled documents and filed associated with the investigation and subsequent dismissal of these personnel. They speak for themselves. At the end of your review, hopefully all of you will have a clearer and better understanding of what happened and why such action was taken to address the malfeasance and misdeeds to ensure the right thing was done and the public trust was preserved. He said Torres, as general manager, intentionally misrepresented both her action and the facts of this case. Instead of working to fix and correct the situation, she and others commenced actions that spread to other employees. Mrs. Torres knew from the very beginning that her actions and those of the other port employees were problematic and possibly violated the law, and she never disclosed any of these actions voluntarily. According to a transcript of the port minutes from October 25, 2012, board members were trying to figure out who at the port tripled Mano's per diem for the Hawaii trip from 100 to 300 per day and double the rate for her escort. Torres, during the board meeting, blamed the board's Human Resources Department. The mistake was in HR because they're the ones that generate that form, Torres said. Port employees later submitted a signed affidavit. A port employee later submitted a signed affidavit stating that it was Torres who changed the travel amounts.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Seventh inning stretch. So here we are at Wrigley Field, seventh inning stretch. I don't see anybody in the center field bleachers. There's none of the Port 7 are out there. Mike Phillips isn't there. John Bell. Nobody in the center field bleachers. So we got to go back to the Port of Guam. Okay, so the same affiant, what was his name? A port employee later submitted a signed affidavit stating it was Torres who changed the travel amount. That's an affidavit by Port Safety Administrator Francisco Roberto. Torres never informed me that she later more than tripled Mano's per diem rate and more than doubled Mano's niece's per diem rate. Torres also failed to inform me that she added another 5 days to Mano's Hawaii trip, Roberto stated. A May 2014 affidavit from Mano's immediate supervisor, Anisha Terlahi, stated Mano wouldn't agree to go to GMH for assessment, which is standard procedure for a work-related injury. I am unaware of Ms. Mano asking to see any physician at all regarding this slip and fall, and did not learn of her injury claim until almost a year after this alleged incident. She said she talked to the safety investigator who said he found no evidence of a slippery substance in the restroom or any trace of anyone sliding or falling. Terlahi noted she had used the same restroom shortly before Stern-Mano and didn't notice anything wrong. Mr. Salas informed me that at first Mano was claiming to have fallen in the stall area and then changed her story and pointed to a nearby drain area, claiming to have slipped in that immediate area, Terlahi stated. He told me a number of times during our conversation that Mano could not explain how she could have fallen. She told different stories, and without any evidence of a slippery surface or an injury at all to Ms. Mano. Mr. Salas did not believe Ms. Mano was being truthful. Port Safety Administrator Roberto, in his June 2013 affidavit, said he participated in a November 2012 meeting at the port with Mano's selected surgeon, Dr. Stephen Ayashida, who attributed Mano's back and leg problems to her autoimmune condition and not to Mano's alleged work injury. Dr. Ayashida has never represented the port that Mano's alleged back problem was the result of a work injury, Roberto stated. According to Guam law and personal rules and regs, Guam employees who are injured on the job are entitled to receive full pay while out of work, up to $100,000 without having to use their personal leave. Their medical bills related to the injury are fully covered by the government with no price limit. The port fired the following employees in connection with the incident: Stern-Mano, Jose Guevara III, financial controller; Vivian Castro Leon, corporate services manager; Francine Rocio, personnel services administrator; Francis Ariola, personnel specialist 4; Josette Havalosa, program coordinator 4; and Leonora Leon Guerrero, planned work coordinator. So interesting that obviously Senator Nelson's committee has seen all of these papers. So even if you took the other side, even if you take the emotional side, wouldn't you have some sort of a responsibility to act on this knowledge that's brought to you in the face of what has happened with the advent of Warren Wolf, also known as Luis Baza, sent to represent the board at the commission, and now taking the board by the hand and leading them to a settlement? It would seem logical to me. And as I mentioned, you know, the other side, the Camacho side, engages in an ad hominem attacks. In other words, they attack the person, attempting to impeach the person's credibility rather than attack the matter on the merits. So I have an article that ran in today's paper. Attorney Michael Phillips, my former legal counsel to the Port Authority, is challenging the assertion that his office racked up $7 million in costs fighting the port's 7 cases. The Port Board on June 25 authorized Deputy General Manager Luis Baza, also known as the Wolf. I just added that in, Real Joe Cruz, so you'd notice, to proceed with settlement agreements involving 4 of the remaining individuals who were terminated over a disputed workers' comp claim by former marketing manager Bernadette Stern-Mano. The move is anticipated to close the book on an 8-year saga that has wrapped the port in controversy. Baza's memorandum to the board states the board paid former legal counsel $7 million to repeatedly pursue appeals in these cases. Well, they don't call him the Wolf for nothing. While under the misguidance of former legal counsel, the port paid him more than $7 million to fight the cases he already knew based on executive session minutes were technically deficient, and has run up a huge liability for back wages to 7 falsely accused employees, Baza stated. While not named, Phillips served as port legal counsel for years and oversaw much of the history behind the port's 7 cases. Then Phillips comes along. But that $7 million figure, according to Phillips, is absolutely fabricated. Legal costs began increasing as his firm tackled more issues, such as the Guam YTK case, as well as procurement and human resources. But the Port 7 cases were a fraction of those costs, Phillips added. Even if you included all of that, we never made that amount of money. If you're saying anything like that, that's all fabricated, absolutely fabricated. A 2015 Public Utilities Commission docket on port legal services indicated that the port expended an average of $70,000 per month on legal costs. This amounts to $840,000 per year, or $6.3 million over 7.5 years, the time that the port has pursued litigation on the Port 7 cases. Although this would apply to all legal issues, not just the Port 7. One major legal case fought for years by Phillips' firm, resulting in lifting of port liability of $14 to $17 million related to a dispute with failed fisheries business over the hotel wharf lease. And we talked about that before, and I guess we're really lucky that the wolf Rory hadn't brought in the wolf then, or we'd have settled the YTK case also based on the wolf's memorandum. Unfortunately, though, or actually fortunately, we won the case, so that argument kind of petered out. The Public Utilities Commission was reviewing a port contract with Phillips' firm for approval. The contract capped expenses at $70,000 per month, except when overages are ratified by the board, which did happen on occasion. The PUC administrative law judge found the contract terms to be commercially reasonable and not burdensome. The commission approved the contract with Phillips' firm in May of 2015. While this contract was for 2015 moving forward, Phillips also represented the port between 2011 and 2015. I'm going to skip over it here and get down to some of the juicier parts. The Guam Daily Post recorded documentation. This is really good. So they go through what the public utility, the port is a regulated industry like power, water, solid waste. So they undergo the scrutiny of the Public Utilities Commission concerning rates and certain expenditures. The Public Utility Commission blessed what Phillips had done. The Guam, remember, Baza said that Phillips had made over $7 million just on the Port 7. And you can tell that Phillips made just over $7 million for the whole time that he represented the port, including all their legal work. Now, the Guam Daily Post requested documentation supporting Baza's $7 million figure for the Port 7 cases. Port General Manager Rory Respicio told the paper to ask Phillips to prove the legal cost was not $7 million. Well, that's a good answer from Rory. Rory, do you have does the Wolf have documentation showing the $7 million, Mr. Rory Respicio? Well, ask Phillips to prove that legal cost was not $7 million. And the port stands by that amount that he's been paid under the legal services contract. This would be the same Rory Respicio who said he'd recused himself. And then there's Rory's rebuttal here. Rory said that at one time Phillips billed for more than 24 hours in one day. Some mention of the public auditor, Senator Mary Torres, who served as general manager of the port before her dismissal in 2012, brought up many of the billing concerns. The port contacted her last year after she was gone. The port contacted her last year as it reviewed the port's 7 cases. Torres statements cover in large part the bill padding allegations and other concerns with Phillips' billing practices. Okay, so last year now, Mary, who got fired, who obviously is a little bit put out that the board of directors would have the temerity to fire her, so she's a little put out. What is it about the woman who was scorned? So last year, she's telling the new management at the port, maybe the Shinohara committee, about the many billing concerns. Torres statements cover in large part the bill padding allegations and other concerns with Phillips' billing practices. Torres also went on to tell the port representative the action that she had taken. Not. It wasn't worth talking about until after she got fired, and has determined that one of the boogeymen, one of the boogie people in her termination was Mike Phillips. So now it's time to come out with the bill padding allegation. Blatant lie. The settlements with the 4 remaining Port 7 employees is expected to cost about $1.8 million, but is intended to be paid over time. The Wolf, better known as Luis Baza's memorandum states that the port pursued litigation against the Port 7 for 7.5 years, and each time the employees continued to prevail. Phillips called that a blatant lie. Except for one case, we won every single appeal, and I think we won 80 or 90% of them at every stage, Phillips said. Every single case except one. Phillips also took umbrage with a layperson, Baza, also known as Warren Wolf, representing the port in the remaining employee litigation matters. Joe McDonald, the port's most recent counsel, left in late February. While the port and the Office of Attorney General have entered into a memorandum of agreement for services, the AG has not represented the port in any Civil Service Commission matters. So I suppose there are several possibilities here. Rory calls up, leaving on a jet plane, Camacho, and says, I've got some hot Civil Service Commission cases coming up with the Port 7. I'd really like to have one of your lawyers come down and get up to speed. They're complicated cases, a lot of preparation involved. Levin says, no thanks, we're not interested in that. Or Levin says, or second scenario, Rory doesn't call Levin Camacho at all. So Levin Camacho reads about these things in the paper and says, well, I guess if they needed me, they'd call me. And maybe they've got the Wolf ready to take over these cases. No, he wouldn't say that. The AG has not represented the port in any Civil Service Commission matters, and procurement for legal counsel is ongoing. No sense hiring counsel when you've got Luis Baza, better known as Warren Wolf. Quote, I informed the board on the record that they needed a litigation firm, and in my opinion, no one attorney could handle this work. Respicio proposed just a staff attorney, and he came on board and quit right after a deputy general manager resigned. Remember that? Connie Jo Shinohara, running the Justice Task Force, resigned, and not after that, Joe McDonald resigned. It's been months now. There's no reason why the general manager could not have secured legal counsel, legal services to protect the port, Phillips said. Without an attorney personally familiar with the cases and able to explain the law involved in each individual case, it's very reckless to just say, let's settle. And when the facts and law of each case are misrepresented and the alleged attorney's fees are exaggerated by over 100%, someone needs to hold those participating in this responsible, Phillips said. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time on this, and it's easy to explain. Here's the law, here are the facts, here's what happened, here's why it happened. It's easy to explain from a rule of law point of view. When it comes to a feelings matter, it's not so easy to explain, and it's much more difficult to understand unless your own feelings are implicated because you know somebody or somebody is your cousin or something like that. But as a general principle, governments don't run very well on feelings. A meritocracy, that is, that we give the jobs to the people best able to handle them, usually run in a rule of law environment, not a feelings environment. So there are some really key questions. If someone could come out and answer these really key questions, some of the doubt would be removed. As is, if this is settled, none of the doubt will be removed. Getting to the home stretch here.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Gäwä business rapu där succesen sukusiker COVID-19 esewes. Esewos sefiari semur coronavirus ira pada sibo sabuera ria warau fitne firats seria kyo sabtsa niwats. Sibo sabuera ria seves puri live pot watter kisi peuts. Me fakuretsia at sibo rosits niri kyo siresin ikapesepes serimun. Sibo feriwisats arabi kisirat sedan semur coronavirus. Klitzkie porraus kökköri yriät Esiresin avitto siliatsu office Micronesian Resource Center Echo Radio Station Not Choice Broadcasting Mewa U.S. Department of Interior Office of Insular Affairs.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So, you know, there's a lot of talk about, well, the 60 days, et cetera, and this affidavit and that affidavit. How about just going right to the heart of the matter? Did Bernadette Maino slip and fall and hurt her back to the point that she had to have back surgery? Then the question is, that happened in 2012. Has she had the back surgery? When was the back surgery performed? And if in fact were performed, then there ought to be some sort of medical documents that show what the surgery addressed and how serious it was. Just to look at that would answer one of the real questions. Because if Bernadette Maino did not slip and fall and hurt her back, none of the rest of this stuff matters, does it? That would be one of the things that I think would really clear this up. I don't think that's going to happen, and as I said, there won't be any closure here because Warren Wolf, better known as Luis Baza, comes in and actually rules on the case. The brand new deputy general manager comes in and says, I spent my whole life working in the merit system, and I've read every single case, and I have determined that there's no reason, that these cases must be settled. And of course, the other one is that The employees never gave up hope that the port would do the right thing for them. So, you know, there was an opportunity to really shed some light on this. Now, the way we think that we get at the truth is in a court of law where the witnesses are sworn. We have an adversary system in the United States. Most of the world operates on the civil law system, which is an inquisitorial system. But we got ours from the Brits, and we have an adversarial system. And our approach is that if you have two sides who go at it as hard as they can, hammer and tongs, before a neutral fact finder and referee judge, that the truth will surface. That's why we have trials. That's why we have defense counsel and plaintiff's counsel. So the Civil Service Commission is analogous to a court. It's an administrative tribunal, but witnesses are sworn to tell the truth. The commission, or in our case, the administrative law judge, presides, makes sure that the situation stays on track, determines who's retelling the truth, and writes up a report. Well, we had an opportunity for that to happen and shed a lot of light on this. This was before the administrative judge came along, and I've got a Guam news, a KUAM news from April of 2013. The title, Former Port General Manager Torres will be no-show at Civil Service Commission hearing. Former Port Authority General Manager Mary Torres was expected to testify during a Civil Service Commission hearing this evening, but she will be a no-show. The CSC has informed the parties that tonight's hearing for former Port Marketing Administrator Bernadette Stern-Mano will have to be rescheduled, as Torres informed the commission that she will not be available tonight. So, there you go. You know, there was a couple of other articles where, where there was an indication that Torres would come in and testify on Mano's behalf and set the record straight on all of this stuff. Former Port GM Torres will be no-show at CSC hearing. She never came. She never did testify in this matter at all. Submitted papers to the Bar Ethics Committee and a few other. Oh, I didn't bring it along, but she submitted a really nice report to Warren Wolf for his use in the workup that he did. Or maybe, no, it was Takani Shinohara, the Shinohara Committee. So we don't know, you know. We sit here and say, if she fell and needed the back surgery, did the back surgery ever happen? And if Mary Torres is so dead set that she didn't do anything wrong, one would think that instead of speaking ex cathedra and tearing up Danny Tydenko, she would take the opportunity to go before the commission and tell her story. Didn't happen. So it seems like this is over. And it probably is, and it does not have a happy ending. You know, the employees who put some money in their pockets, yeah, they're going to say the story had a happy ending. And those on the side of emotion are going to say, oh, I'm so glad they won. I felt so bad for them. And the rule of law guys like me are going to say, we didn't follow the procedure. I don't like the result. I don't like the procedure. But here's something else that come into play here. Statutes of limitations. I read Bernadette Mano's adverse action notice, or final notice of adverse action on Friday, and there were allegations of several crimes that what she had done broke several laws, and she committed several crimes. This is what was alleged. Well, if she had committed crimes And of course, crimes can be, even if she won at the Civil Service Commission, that would not be a bar to prosecuting her for crimes. And it wouldn't be a bar to prosecuting any of the other people involved here. Statute of limitations says that for public officers, that statute doesn't end for public officers involved until 3 years after they leave government service. So if there were some airmen involved in this, maybe our Attorney General would prosecute. Okay, that's it for today. See you on Monday.